Lee and Trudy retired, went to Mexico, and bought a boat in a boatyard where they adopted Blondie. Ending their third year of living aboard La Brisa, they enjoy sailing in Mexico, exploring new anchorages, and life in general. Hi everyone. Well, I get to go home today to La Brisa. So come along with me and let's see what Lee's been doing at the boat. An early morning flight got me into Phoenix to connect to the one and only U.S. flight to Hermosillo, the capital of the state of Sonora, and just an hour and 45 minutes away from Guaymas. Well, minus the stop at Cafeño for a latte. The new highway is a far cry from the highway of 3 years ago. A stop for lunch at Arbolitos with Topo Chico mineral water and a shot of lime juice to go with my octopus, shrimp, and fish salad. Lee had the calamar chicharron, our crispy fried squid in a sauce. It was wonderful to be eating terrific seafood. Another stop at Home Depot to buy a roller for bottom paint, and we were soon headed towards downtown and Calle 20 to the yard. Everything was pretty much the same, right down to the numerous potholes and mountainous topes, our speed bumps. It was great to be back to relaxed living. When we hauled out the end of July, there was no room at the boatyard for us, and we were put out in the field, which was okay with us. No boats to fall on us in the event of a hurricane. Go get her. The big surprise was when I climbed the ladder and saw there were no locker covers in the cockpit. Lee had found a carpenter and the covers were out for repair and strengthening. While Lee and Blondie were on their own, Lee serviced all the seacocks, cleaned the water tanks, polished, pulled, and spray painted the prop with Petit's prop paint. It will be interesting to see how well it performs. Lee also pulled the whisker stay fittings with its corroded bolts and discovered numerous cracks in the fittings themselves. Luis Hernandez made us a set of new fittings, which were bedded and the stays reattached. Lee had been a whirlwind of activity before my arrival, but there were still more chores to be done before we could splash. Finally home, I began going through the cabinets and was delighted to discover the large stash of powdered milk I had stored in the middle of the cabin under the table was still good, whereas the powdered milk stored in this container that was in the cabinet along the hull was damaged by the heat of the summer sun beating on the hull. Lee purchased replacement blocks for our monitor wind vane, and as he replaced the blocks, he noticed the cracks in the stainless arms. The wind vane rudder takes a lot of stress, and this was another example of something we could not ignore and wait for it to break. There was nothing for it but to remove the vane, and off to Luis it went for welding. During the removal process, Lee discovered yet another corroded bolt, which sheared off during removal. Before leaving the boat last summer, we ran sacrificial lines to help preserve our regular halyards. Before splashing, we reran the halyards. There was just one problem. Last July, we had a big oops, and we listened with sinking hearts as an unsecured sacrificial line zinged over the masthead blocks and down the mast, leaving us with no main halyard. We had 3 months of knowing that we would have to deal with that problem upon our return. We did some research on the problem and got some ideas from YouTube. I brought with me a bicycle chain to be attached to a thin line and lowered through the mast. In theory, the chain was to be easily extracted through the halyard lead with a strong magnet. It was a great idea, but it didn't work for us. The halyard mast exit lead was too small for the bicycle chain to fit through, and the lead itself could not be removed from the mast without drilling out rivets. Lee tried several tools to try grabbing the thin line just above the chain, including a wire fish tape and a flexible drain cleaner, but all to no avail. With a lone flexible grabber tool, Lee was able to extract the thin line, and we were able to pull the halyard through. It was a job that took us half a day. What an ordeal.
Yes.
The only project we took with us to California last summer was the maintenance and revarnishing of the wooden-faced blocks for the main sheet. We made use of our friend Scott's workshop, and Lee took apart the blocks. I stripped and varnished the block faces, which was made easy with the use of a handy clothes rack Scott had on hand. Back in the yard, with several days of unprecedented November rain, it was a good time to put the blocks back together.
So it's built on the same concept as a spanner for our water tank. Huh?
Yeah.
The last item before splashing was unpacking and running our new mainsail up the mast. Unfortunately, 2 of the battens were broken in shipping, but otherwise we are very pleased with the new sail. Blondie said goodbye to her best friend in the yard. And while it seemed like there were so many innumerable chores to do before splashing, and with the delay from the rain and heavy winds that followed the storm system, we thought our splash date would never come. But finally, the day came, and it was our turn to splash. For some reason, I had a hard time getting this video done. It just was a hard one for me to put together and edit. Don't know why. Anyway, the next one will follow shortly. It will be about getting out of Guaymas, our crossing, and life in La Paz. So until then,